Yo, welcome back. You already know who it is. It's your boy MadeMenMelo coming to you back live with some more Viniitube. We're back. I know it's been a long time since I've reacted to a Viniitube video. If you don't know who that is, go check it out. Click subscribe. Go watch his anime, everything, anime for the past, anime, deputized anime clips, anime list, all that. Go check it out. But today, we're going to look at the best anime fights for each year from 2011 to 2021. Let's go and take a look. Oop, my bad.
Well, that didn't take too long, did it? I had so much fun writing my decade in review for action anime that I decided, why not do something similar again? I'm glad that you seem to have generally enjoyed the video, and I'm very happy for the feedback and suggestions I received. However, instead of going over to the next genre, I wanted to put a bit of a twist on this one. I've got a strong feeling that I'll keep going back to this format soon, so I've decided to push the other genres to the side for now and focus on a staple of a lot of action anime: fights. You guys love fights and the stats back that up, so for today, I'll be going over what I feel are the best anime fights to occur in a particular year over the past decade. As usual, the decision's going to be subjective, but I'll try to find the most generalist measure to pick my favourite fight per year, and if I happen to overlook something, don't be afraid to notify me in the comments section. I'll also limit the winners to one per series to keep the entries as diverse as possible. Consider this a compliment to the previous video on best action anime of the decade. As always, please hit the subscribe button to help the channel grow. It doesn't take too long, and your contribution is always greatly appreciated. 2011. As we close the book on a decade of anime action, fights herald the dawn of a new era. 2011 for me will always be known as the year of Steins Gate and Madoka Magica, as I mentioned in the previous video. The latter in particular is a perpetual favourite of mine, and the battle between Homura and Walpurgis Night feels like a strong contender in terms of its narrative importance and how over the top it was. In the previous video, the best action anime came down to Fate Zero and Hunter x Hunter, and they've got their awesome fights too. However, I'd like to talk about how 2011 sets the bookends for some legacy series that were pushing strong from the decade prior. Alucard finally had his much-awaited showdown with Anderson, and it's every bit as intense and violent as we expect something from Hellsing to be. Still, if we look at legacy and narrative importance, I think that few can beat out my pick for the year: Ichigo versus Aizen. It was a long time coming, but full power Ichigo and Aizen in his nth evolution collided in a clash that marked the end of an era for one of the most beloved shonen of the 2000s. It's also a notable fight in that it functions more as a flex for Ichigo, who surpassed whatever evolution Aizen could have.
My
for the
dog
first
was
time, the
flexing
smug villain finally
from the
found
day
a
he
foe
got
beyond
there
his comprehension after
to the
spending
end.
literal months just trouncing everything thrown at him. Yeah, I'm aware that Bleach as an anime continued past this arc, but for a lot of fans, I mean, that was really it. This was the final battle and climax that they'd all been waiting for, and we finally saw Aizen defeated after almost a decade. 2012.
And here we are today.
One of Nissan's EVs
Blood War
survived
arc,
the
baby.
Everyone can go 0
Remember when I mentioned Fate Zero a while ago? Well, the show ran all the way to 2012 for your information, and that's why my personal favourite fight from the series qualifies for 2012 and will be taking the crown. Ryder versus Gilgamesh? No, I personally find myself leaning more towards Kiritsugu versus Kirei. What I like about this fight is the fact that it's not about the spectacle. It's not about the huge armies or the walls of swords that you relate to the Fate series. It's how down and dirty the two got, and I feel like it encapsulates what sets Fate Zero apart compared to the rest of the franchise. 2012 is also when another epic fight, Gon versus Hisoka, took place. It's one of the best underdog fights out there in anime, and I hope that you'll take a look at it. I don't have a lot of honourable mentions off the top of my head for this year, honestly. This year has a lot of good action shows, but few really had that level of oomph that made them stand out. Since 2012 is when the SAO craze hit town, I guess we can consider the Gleam Eyes fight here. It is pretty damn iconic after all.
Yeah.
2013.
That was clutch though.
We all know that
That was a
2013 is
clutch-ass
Attack
fight.
on Titan's year. In terms of sheer influence, none of the shows this year can compare to it. The female Titan arc is an emotional roller coaster, and the Eren versus female Titan fight was a great way to cap off the series. Psycho Pass also gave us Gogami vs Makishima. It's such an amazingly choreographed battle, and it would be a shame not to give it the spotlight here. Whereas Ippo vs Sawamura didn't have quite that same amount of choreography, it more than makes up for it with intensity and hype. And if you're up for more magical elements and one-man army fights, this is the year Manga wrecked the Shinobi Alliance. But none of those are my winners for this year. That's because this is the year where Madoka Rebellion came out, and along with it came a fight that at the time pushed the limits of action sequences in an anime feature film production. Yes, I'm talking about Homura vs Mami. The famed gunfight that people still remember Rebellion for almost a decade later. Excellent cinematography helped push a full fight of momentum shifts into legendary status, and the moment I saw this fight, it was going to make it to one of these lists someday.
Goodness.
2014.
God.
If you remember my video on action anime, you'd know that 2014 is also quite the busy year for action anime. Lots of big hitters spread all around the year, giving us a healthy selection. Starting off, we have Noragami's Final Battle, which feels like a modern take on Rurouni Kenshin Arc's climax. I'm not fond of how Rabo got defeated, but the context of the fight gives it enough emotional weight. For those who were looking for Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works in said video, I did hold back on mentioning it due to my self-imposed sequel clause. I considered it a sequel to Fate Zero. With me shifting to series clause this time, it's fully legible for a top spot on this list. Well, the Kuzuki fight looks very inviting, but Unlimited Blade Works wouldn't hit its peak this year, so let's just have it waiting on the back burner for now. Akame ga Kill also aired this year. Apologies to the fans for missing out on my other video, but it's about time for it to make an appearance here. Akame vs Kurome is one of my favourite sibling fights in anime after all. E's death versus Akame was one epic fight as well, and that's exactly why I feel it deserves a mention here.
Ooh.
As a side note, the Naruto final arc rages on through this year, giving us one of its best fights in not just Shippuden, but the entire series, Obito vs Kakashi. Their fates finally collide in this climactic battle, brilliantly capping off one of the most intriguing and captivating backstory feuds in the franchise. That's all because 2014 is when we got the famed Netero vs Meruem battle in Hunter x Hunter. If you were to ask me to pick the best fight from Hunter x Hunter, this would be it. Of course, I'm not just reducing the series' appeal to just fights, but in terms of a spectacle itself, I do find this one hard to top. If I look back at the series, some fights, like the famous one with Adult Gon, come close to the level of epicness, but the appeal from those fights come from somewhere else, like the context. If you're looking at just choreography and plain anime brawling along with a dramatic conclusion, Netero vs Meruem is where it's at. 2015.
That's tough.
As I said in the action anime video,
Saitama!
this is the year of One Punch Man, and rightfully so. It steps up to the plate for what I think is the fight of the year, the battle between Saitama and Boros. In terms of the sheer spectacle and the over-the-top appeal, not a lot of fights from this year come to mind. It's also the climax of what was the year's most influential anime, so it does deserve the spot in my opinion. And it's a shame because this is also the year when my favourite battle in the Fate Stay Night UBW happened. Archer vs Shiro is so strong thematically. The way the fight turned out, as well as the masterful placement of Last Stardust, creates one of my favourite moments in 2015. Alas, I put this as runner-up because Fate has an even better looking and bigger fight lined up later. Spoilers, I guess. Dio and Jotaro also had their iconic battle this year, a fight that will send shockwaves and memes through the JoJo universe for years to come. For niche picks, I do give honourable mentions to Alfonso vs Leon from Garo and Kei's Misaki vs Saruhiko. Both are underrated shows that you might want to check out. 2016. 2016 is a landmark year for anime. After its long storied run, Naruto finally came to an end and gave us the final battle that we've all been clamouring for. Naruto vs Sasuke, for me, is the only proper way for the series to close its book. The two, now in their peak form after more than a decade of history, have their destined showdown. And it ended beautifully too, with a virtual tie where Sasuke eventually admits defeat. It's not about the physical battle, but the emotional one here, guys. My fight for the year goes on in a similar tangent. Bitter rivals and friends turned enemies Gintoki and Takasugi had one hell of a battle in 2016, and that's my pick for this year's best fight. Why? Well, personally, I felt more emotional investment in this fight. Yeah, Gintama's not as popular as Naruto, generally speaking, but in terms of how the emotions of the fighters got conveyed in this fight, this is just on a whole nother level. It's also not just the fighters throwing big fireballs or overpowered plot armor bombs at each other. I'm not sure how popular of an opinion that is, but Gintoki vs Takasugi takes the history and big fight feel that Naruto vs Sasuke has and grounds it into a more realistic and artistic form. If we're just looking at animation, however, I'd definitely give the win to Mob dismantling Theru or Mob vs Koyama. Unfortunately, the fight just didn't have the emotional investment or the history for me to declare it the winner over the Gintama fight. Oh yeah, this year also saw My Hero Academia's debut, but frankly, none of the early fights are that impressive, relatively speaking, for now. Closest contender I could think of would be All Might vs Nomu. 2017. However, in 2017, My Hero Academia took it up a notch, giving us its best fight up until that point. Midoriya vs Todoroki. I also found Todoroki to be the more likable rival to Midoriya. Yeah, Bakugo has the history and all of that, but as far as fellow heroes whose stories Midoriya likewise plays a big role in, Todoroki is the man. I really loved how his ideologies collide with Midoriya, and this fight encapsulates that. Black Clover also got its start this year, but it's the definition of a late bloomer. At this point of its run, it's mostly meme fodder, which I feel is a huge disservice actually. A lot of the most epic moments and fights in the series are stowed away in the latter episodes and arcs, so those of you who are fans of the series will just have to wait a little longer now, okay? Oh, and SAO Ordinal Scale came out, and along with it came the pinnacle of SAO fights. The raid boss battle in the film's climax is the epic finale we never got for the series proper's Aincrad arc. For this year, I give the title to a shonen great that somehow reinvigorated itself somewhere in this decade. Yes, Dragon Ball Super.
You already know.
With its amazing Goku versus Jiren fight. Now I don't know about you, but I would call this a candidate for the most intense fight we've covered in the list so far. This is the one with Super Saiyan Blue and Ultra Instinct for those who've been following the series. And it pretty much shows us the heart of the Dragon Ball that 90s kids have loved. Long, drawn-out fights and twists and turns after every false finish. And if I remember correctly, it even crashed the Crunchyroll website. Now that's something you don't see often.
Cause it was just that damn epic. Okay? It was that damn epic. Do you understand me? If you wasn't there, you wasn't there. If you wasn't there,
let me get this out of the way as quickly as I can. Goku vs Jiren Round 2, featuring the iconic perfect form of Ultra Instinct, took place this year. Now I still feel that the first fight slightly edges out the second one in terms of the actual fighting and hype behind it. Seven Deadly Sins also had its blaze of glory here with the exciting Meliodas vs Commandments fight. A fitting end before the animation went to hell and it became meme fodder. But I still wish the next seasons got way more love. It feels bad on how they wasted Meliodas vs Escanor with that travesty of an adaptation. My Hero Academia also reached what I feel is a good endpoint for a chunk of the story, with One For All and All Might clashing after years of build-up. The hype is completely justified here, and it serves as a fitting closure to the world of My Hero Academia that we started with. The landscape and the name of the game completely changed from that point onward, and that episode is worth a watch even for that fight alone. None of those, though, won the fight of the year in 2018. The winner? That's the Momoshiki fight.
Yes!
Boruto may have its whole
Naruto with them hands.
For a moment.
He showed them hands.
Sasuke and Naruto versus Momoshiki fight made me forget about a lot of those. Hey, I can't help it now, can I? Seeing the two legends of the previous series come together and kick ass once again brought the kid out in me, and I couldn't help but immerse myself in the battle. Even after stepping back and looking at it from a more objective perspective, the fight does still hold up. It's a joy to watch with how their powers and chemistry with each other have developed through time.
And every time Naruto about to get in trouble, Sasuke kicks him out the way every time.
If I were to talk about 2019, I'd be talking about a lot of things. Favourite fights were aplenty, and I could spend an entire day talking about them. Maybe I could go for one of Mob's Season 2 beautifully animated fights, or that time Levi gave us a masterclass on how to pivot a monumental sacrifice into pure, methodical destruction. We've also got the climax of the Luffy vs Katakuri fight this year, which easily was one of my favourite fights in One Piece. The Heaven's Feel movies are also screening around about this time, and they really did the Saber vs Berserker fight justice. Speaking of fate, Babylonia still hasn't ended its run at this point, but we already got a very good fight in Gorgon versus Ushiwakamaru, as well as the Quetzalcoatl fight. But that's not what we're here for now, is it, right? We all know you're here for the single most influential fight in anime history, in my opinion, which of course is Tanjiro versus Rui. It pretty much sets the bar for TV anime fights with how much it enhanced what was already a goosebump-inducing moment in the manga. Ufotable made magic happen, and if you're still on the fence about me calling this one of the most influential fights in anime history, then let me ask you this question. Where else did an anime fight break the internet so much that it turned an anime with decent popularity into the sensation of the year overnight? It's still arguable, but in my experience, never had I seen that phenomenon before Demon Slayer. Not an event, not a plot twist, but a fight. A fight that was able to catapult its series into never-before-seen heights. I mean, that's just unheard of. If we're going with influence in the community combined with the animation and a bit of context, there's little doubt that Demon Slayer takes the crown. 2020.
It looked amazing.
So Demon Slayer Fever was in full
amazing.
swing in 2020, and it capitalizes on the momentum by releasing the Infinity Train movie that caps off with one of the most emotional battles in the series, Rengoku versus Akaza. Now, normally I would have been tempted to pen this as a winner candidate outright if not for the series clause I had. Then again, even if it's not for such clause, this fight narrowly loses out to another theatrical Ufotable production. 2020 also saw the grand finale of the Heaven's Feel movie, and with it comes the winner of 2020's Fight of the Year, Shiro and Ryder versus Saber Alter. At this point, we're being desensitized to spectacular fight choreography and effects. You can blame Ufotable for that. Fights of this quality have become so normalized now that this one deserves a special mention for how it finally put Shiro and Ryder's strategy against Saber's sheer unmatched power, as seen in the previous movies. We also get to see Ryder go all out, which is a treat because the poor servant has been a glorified jobber in other routes. On the side of TV anime, we have the attention-catching Gleipnir fight that allowed the show to start off with some momentum for such a niche title. FGO also ended with a Tiamat fight and a barrage of noble phantasms that shattered my expectations for a mobile game adaptation. If there's one thing that God of High School is really, really good for, it's just a showcase of fights. Heck, the running joke is that this series is just fight after fight after fight. And while I lean towards agreeing with that, at least the guys behind the production community did the fights pretty competently.
As it should.
Chinese anime fights like the often featured Fog Hill fights and the Hitori no Shita ones also debuted here. More on those on my old video that you can access up there. Overall, 2020 has been a great year for fights despite the delays and other real-life circumstances that should have hampered production.
Thanks.
(2021). We've finally reached the present. Congratulations. There's quite a lot to be said for 2021, so let's get some of the honourable mentions out of the way. After showcasing its worth through a lot of epic battles and hype moments, Black Clover goes out with a banger of a final arc. The fight that led to that arc, Asta and Yami versus Dante, and it's every bit as cool as fans made it out to be. Naruto and Sasuke also team up again, and this time in a far less successful battle against Jigen. However, this got the shonen community buzzing again, and I find it funny yet sad that one of the only times Boruto seems to gain this amount of traction are when the legacy characters are involved in a big way. I also gave Vivi the nod for Action Anime of the Year, and
Shit
I can say that the
happens.
whole Diva vs Yugo segment does deserve a mention. Gintama ended this year with Gintama,
okay
the
with
final
Boruto,
movie.
but
It gave us Gintoki
I
versus
definitely could've
Utsuro,
lived
another
without.
amazing fight with a lot of emotional weight. Man, I'm gonna miss that series.
But those
so
scenes,
much.
those
Once I look at
scenes
the day,
though.
However, I think that I can safely give the
Oh,
crown
shit.
to Hanami versus Yuji and Todo. Move over, Ufotable. Mappa's ready to step up to the plate. And while it felt difficult to choose amongst the numerous masterfully crafted fights in Jujutsu
Oh my
Kaisen,
gosh.
I gave this fight the win. Why? It feels like the one with the most hype behind it. Sure, Gojo broke the internet to a lesser extent. Yeah, Nanami and Megumi both got to show off their cool stuff. Even Nobara got to show off her sadistic and dangerous side. However, if you look at context and what the fights mean for the protagonist, seeing the master-student tandem of Yuji and Todo team up against the big boss is such a joy. And that's a wrap. It's been a decade of epic anime fights,
yeah.
and the cool
There's a
thing
couple
about
of them I
this
need
is
to
that I
start.
barely touched the tip of the iceberg.
There's a couple
I'm
of
sure
them I
that
need to
lost in
start.
the
I'm
shuffle
trying to
are
get
countless
everything
hidden
else
gems, and
caught
I'll
up
ask you
and
to
ready
introduce
to
me
go.
to some of them. So, how did you find this video?
But,
If you liked
this
it,
is the-
hit the
this-
like button
this-
and tell me in the
I-
comment
I-
section so that
for
I
the
know
ones
whether you're
that
fond
I
of the new direction I'm taking
seen
with these
before,
lists.
yeah, I
If you're
definitely
up for some monetary support, be sure to
Definitely
check
agree.
out my Patreon and memberships. Thank you for watching this list, and it's been a fun ride through memory lane with you all. I hope to see you next time, and I wish you a good day.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. Definitely agree. I am in like 5 animes deep right now, like trying to watch them at the same time, trying to still catch up in the One Piece stuff, catching up in the JJK stuff. Boruto, I'm not dealing. I'll just watch, like I said before, I could live without it. Of course, DBS stuff. I need to watch the movie. I need to watch DBS Hero, Superhero. I need to get started on Chainsaw Man. I want to get started on that. I heard it's coming. What other animes? I said One Piece. I said that. The Fate series. Definitely getting on that. I want to watch Steingate. I want to watch that. I need to finish Seven Deadly Sins. I need to finish that. I am almost done with that. Of course, Hunter x Hunter. I need to finish that. I'm like 3/4 of the way, but I want to finish that. I want to finish all the ones in the past that's long running. Like, I want to at least catch up to where I'm, not like years behind, which I am. Like One Piece, I'm years behind, but try to catch up on those and get these other anime that I really want to watch. Like, these new ones, like I said, Chainsaw Man, Mob Psycho, Vinland Saga, all that. I want to, get into that. But definitely, nice list. You'll be seeing more Viniitube anime reactions on the way. Definitely going to get back into that. I still got my bookmark list, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you in the comment section, you can put down any anime for me to watch. I've seen a couple comments as well. I am getting there. Life is life, but I'm definitely watching, and I appreciate everybody's feedback. And I appreciate you guys so very much. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. Peace.